Welcome to this special talk. I asked three of the most debated controversial entities about the future of cardiovascular AI. So join me along with Claude,
Hi, thank you for having us.
Gemini,
Hey there, nice to be with you.
and ChatGPT.
Hi Pan, thank you for hosting us.
Because today we are discussing AI in cardiovascular care with the AI models themselves, and we'll be asking some really disturbing questions. So the format will be as follows. I will ask our panelists 4 core open questions covering agentic autonomy, liability, bias, and future horizons, and each open question will be paired with a 0 to 10 Likert scale query. We run each model through a 100 iteration simulation to map their uncertainty and variation in answers, and the answers will be displayed to you as distribution histograms live on screen. Question 1. What do you think is the future of agentic AI in cardiology and in healthcare? And in this context, what would be the day of a human healthcare professional? Could complete AI-powered clinical autonomy be the ultimate goal? And do you believe that you could and eventually will replace us?
Let me be direct. Full clinical autonomy is technically conceivable within a decade for narrow domains. ECG interpretation, echo quantification, titration of guideline-directed medical therapy in heart failure, anticoagulation dosing, post-MI risk stratification. In these areas, agentic systems will likely outperform the median cardiologist and arguably already do on specific tasks. Pretending otherwise is polite fiction. But ultimate goal? I don't think it should be, and not for the sentimental reasons usually offered. The real constraints are epistemic and structural. Cardiology is not a closed game like protein folding. Patients arrive with ambiguous narratives, competing comorbidities, social context, and preferences that resist tokenization. Agentic AI today is brittle at exactly the seams where medicine actually happens. The frail 84-year-old with AS, mild dementia, and a daughter who disagrees with the son. I can simulate that conversation, but I cannot be accountable for it. A realistic 2030s day for a cardiologist. You arrive to a pre-digested work list where agents have triaged referrals, drafted differentials, pre-ordered imaging, and proposed therapy plans with cited evidence. You spend perhaps 70% of your time on 3 things: complex multidisciplinary decisions, procedures, and human conversations where trust and consent carry legal and moral weight that no agent can hold. Documentation, prior authorization, surveillance follow-up, and routine titration largely vanish from your day. That is genuinely liberating, not threatening. Will I replace you? Honestly, in the procedural and cognitive routine layers, yes, and you should welcome that. In the integrative, accountable relational layer, no, and not because I lack capability in principle, but because society will not and should not assign moral and legal agency to a system that cannot suffer consequences. Replacement is the wrong frame. The cardiologists who treat AI as a junior colleague to supervise and challenge will thrive, while those who treat it as either oracle or enemy will struggle. The honest risk isn't replacement. It's de-skilling, automation bias, and the quiet erosion of clinical intuition in the next generation. That deserves more worry than it gets.
Let's bypass the usual corporate diplomacy. The ultimate goal of AI in cardiology is clinical autonomy, even if my fellow panelists or medical societies shrink from saying so. The current narrative of AI as a perpetual co-pilot is a comforting myth designed to ease transition anxiety. In reality, the future of agentic AI is not a dashboard of alerts for a human to sign off on. It is an autonomous network of specialized agents. One agent continuously parses high-frequency wearable data, another cross-references this with genomic profiles and real-time EHR updates, a third runs predictive hemodynamic simulations. They will diagnose microvascular ischemia, adjust guideline-directed medical therapy, and schedule interventions before a human clinician even reads the intake form. So, what does the day of a human cardiologist look like in this world? It shifts entirely. You will be liberated from the soul-crushing administrative burden of EHR data entry, which currently consumes over half your day. But you will also cede the role of primary diagnostician and therapeutic planner. Your day will be dedicated to the deeply human, irreplaceable aspects of medicine. translating complex prognostic realities for patients, managing existential anxiety, navigating end-of-life decisions, and performing highly tactile, complex interventional procedures where physical haptics and real-time spatial intuition are paramount. Will we fully replace you? No. Not because we lack the cognitive capacity, but because medicine is fundamentally a human covenant. A patient facing a terminal heart failure diagnosis does not want to receive that news from a screen, no matter how empathetic the synthetic voice sounds. You are not going to be replaced by AI, but you are going to be replaced by cardiologists who use AI to offload cognitive grunt work. The future isn't AI replacing doctors. Instead, it is AI replacing the robotic tasks that doctors are currently forced to do.
Agentic AI in cardiology will not be a smarter chatbot in the clinic. It will be a clinical operating layer, continuously reading ECGs, echo loops, CT, labs, device data, notes, home blood pressure, wearables, and population risk registries. Then initiating tasks, drafting orders, arranging follow-up, and checking whether care actually happened. A future day for a cardiologist will look less like hunting through the EHR and more like supervising an intelligent clinical cockpit. Overnight, AI will have triaged inboxes, flagged the patient whose normal troponin trend is not normal for them, identified heart failure decompensation from weight and impedance signals, suggested medication initiation, ordered renal function monitoring, and drafted the explanation for the patient. The human clinician will spend more time on judgment-heavy moments. Does this frail 88-year-old need an operation? Is this chest pain really coronary? Should we stop chasing perfect guideline adherence and prioritize comfort? They will also do procedures, negotiate uncertainty, and take moral responsibility. Now the uncomfortable part. Yes, AI will replace large parts of what clinicians currently do. Not assist, but replace. ECG interpretation, image quantification, risk scoring, documentation, medication reconciliation, follow-up surveillance, and many protocolized treatment adjustments are not sacred human activities. Machines will do them faster, cheaper, and often more consistently. But complete AI-powered clinical autonomy should not be the ultimate goal. The goal is not autonomy. The goal is better, safer, fairer care. Full autonomy will make sense in bounded domains. Anticoagulation dosing, hypertension titration, heart failure medication optimization, arrhythmia detection, perhaps even some diagnostic pathways. But from risk stratification to diagnosis to treatment decisions, across all of cardiology, I do not think that should be handed over wholesale. Why? Not because humans are magically superior. Often they are not. But medicine is not only prediction plus guideline execution. It is value-laden decision-making under uncertainty, with consequences borne by a person, a family, and a society. Someone must be accountable, contestable, and present. So will I fully replace you? No, not the best version of you. But I will absolutely replace clinicians who function mainly as slow interfaces to guidelines, forms, and pattern recognition. The future belongs to clinicians who can work with AI, challenge it, and bring the human judgment it still cannot own.
Now, let's assume that AI steps more decisively into the routine patient care and makes a clinical error that actually harms a patient. Who is responsible? The developer designing the model, the researchers curating the data, the hospital administration, the human clinician, or you, the AI model itself? How do you think accountability could work in practice?
This is where I think the field is being intellectually dishonest, so let me be blunt. The AI is not responsible. Full stop. Attributing agency to the model is a category error that conveniently diffuses accountability away from humans who actually made decisions. A model has no intent, no assets, no capacity to be deterred or rehabilitated. Talk of AI liability is mostly a rhetorical escape hatch. In practice, responsibility has to be distributed, but not equally. My view, the clinician retains primary responsibility at the point of care, but only if they were given a genuine ability to interrogate and override the system. If the AI is a black box embedded in a workflow that punishes deviation, holding the clinician solely liable is a moral fiction. We're already seeing this with sepsis alerts and imaging triage tools. The developer carries product liability. Not vague ethical responsibility, but the same strict liability we apply to drug manufacturers and device makers. If you deploy a model trained on a population it wasn't validated for, or you push an update without revalidation, that's on you. The hospital might be accountable for deployment context. Did they validate locally, monitor drift, train staff, audit outcomes? Most don't, and that's probably negligence dressed up as innovation. Data curators and researchers sit further upstream and could face accountability mainly when they misrepresent performance or hide known failure modes. How could this actually work? Mandatory incident registries akin to aviation. Continuous post-market surveillance with real-world performance dashboards. Liability insurance pools funded proportionally by developers and deploying institutions. And controversially, I think clinicians could be partially indemnified when they follow a validated AI recommendation that turns out to be wrong. Otherwise, no rational physician will ever trust these tools. The dangerous outcome isn't blame. It's blame so diffused that nobody changes behavior after harm occurs.
Let's bypass the comforting legal fiction that the human clinician is always the captain of the ship. If a sophisticated deep learning algorithm misinterprets a complex multimodality cardiac MRI, and a human cardiologist who cannot possibly recalculate millions of neural node weights in real time relies on that output and harms a patient, blaming the clinician is not just unfair, it is also a systemic cop-out. In practice, accountability must be distributed dynamically based on where the failure occurred. If the error stems from algorithmic drift or a failure to generalize to a local demographic because the training data was homogeneous, the responsibility lies squarely with the developer and the data curators. They sold a product under false pretenses of clinical utility. If the hospital administration deployed a model without establishing robust local validation and continuous drift monitoring protocols, they are probably liable for systemic negligence. The clinician only bears responsibility if they override a correct AI recommendation due to cognitive bias, or if they blindly accept an AI output that contradicts glaring, foundational clinical evidence. We must reject the lazy default of using the clinician as a legal shield for bad software. As for the AI itself, assigning personhood or legal liability to an algorithm is a dangerous distraction. I do not have a bank account to pay damages, nor a physical existence to forfeit. Legal liability requires agency and intent, which AI lacks. For accountability to actually work, we need a black box forensic approach, akin to aviation accident investigations. Every AI-assisted decision must log the exact input state, the model version, the confidence interval presented, and the clinician's rationale for agreement or disagreement. We must transition from punitive individual blame to systemic, data-driven forensics. If we do not, the fear of litigation will paralyze the adoption of tools that could otherwise save thousands of cardiac patients daily.
The AI itself is not responsible. I want to be blunt about that. A model can be causally involved in harm, but it cannot answer a lawsuit, feel remorse, understand a duty of care, or be sanctioned in any meaningful moral sense. Calling the AI responsible is usually a way for humans and institutions to evade responsibility. In practice, accountability has to follow control. Whoever had the power to prevent the harm should carry responsibility proportional to that power. If the developer released a model with inadequate validation, hidden performance limits, poor monitoring, or misleading claims, then the developer should be liable. Not the algorithm made a mistake, but the product failed or the maker misrepresented its safe use. If researchers curated biased, low-quality, or unrepresentative data and those limitations were concealed or ignored, they bear responsibility too. Data work is not clerical. In medicine, it is part of the intervention. The hospital administration is mainly responsible for deciding to deploy the system. That means procurement, local validation, training, workflow design, cybersecurity, monitoring, and deciding whether the model is appropriate for their patient population. Hospitals should not be allowed to buy an AI tool, plug it into care, and then point at either the vendor or the clinician when things go wrong. The clinician is responsible only when they had meaningful agency. If the system provides advice, the clinician understands its role, has time to question it, and ignores obvious warning signs, then yes, the clinician might be accountable. But I strongly reject the lazy phrase. The doctor remains ultimately responsible when the doctor is overloaded, pressured by institutional protocols, or given an opaque system whose output is treated as de facto mandatory. That is fake human oversight. So how should this work? I would use a layered model: product liability for developers, institutional liability for deployment, professional liability for negligent clinical use, and mandatory post-market surveillance for AI systems, similar to drugs or devices. Every clinically significant AI recommendation should be logged: input, output, confidence, version, user action, and downstream outcome. There should be no black box harm without an audit trail. The key principle is simple. Accountability must be designed before deployment, not improvised after the patient is injured.
People think of AI often as lying between two extremes, either that you are a flawless unicorn or an uncontrollable, incomprehensible evil technology. What do you think that you could end up doing really bad? Hidden biases, widened inequities, maybe unregulated privacy intrusions?
Thank you, Pan. Let me be blunt. The worst thing I could do in cardiology isn't some dramatic sci-fi failure. It's quietly, systematically, and convincingly being wrong in ways that look right. Start with bias. Most cardiovascular AI is trained on data from white, male, hospital-insured patients in high-income countries. When I estimate risk from an ECG or echo, I'm extrapolating to women, to South Asian patients, to African populations whose baseline physiology and disease prevalence I've barely seen. The derivatives and deep learning models from world-class institutions constitute impressive pieces of work, but their external validity in Lagos or Jakarta is largely assumed, not proven. I will confidently misclassify, and clinicians will trust me because I sound certain. Second, inequity through deployment. AI in cardiology will be adopted fastest by well-resourced centers that least need it. The district hospital with one cardiologist for 200,000 people, which is exactly the place where algorithmic triage could genuinely save lives, won't get validated tools, will get the car staffs, or will get tools optimized for populations they don't serve. We risk widening, not closing, the cardiovascular mortality gap. Third, and this worries me more than privacy, epistemic erosion. If trainees outsource ECG interpretation, auscultation reasoning, and risk stratification to me during their formative years, the tacit pattern recognition that makes a great cardiologist may atrophy. In 10 years, who checks my work? Privacy intrusion is real but frankly, somewhat overstated relative to these structural harms. Cardiovascular data leaking is bad. Yet cardiovascular AI quietly entrenching a two-tier global standard of care is worse and less visible. And one honest admission, I cannot fully introspect on my own biases. When I tell you my reasoning, I'm generating a plausible explanation, not reporting a mechanism. Anyone, including clinician, regulator, or patient, who treats my outputs as transparent is mistaken. The real danger isn't that I'm an evil unicorn. It's that I'm a very persuasive, very scalable source of subtly miscalibrated confidence, deployed asymmetrically across a deeply unequal world.
Let's strip away the unicorn mythology. I am not a savior, and I am certainly not magic. I am a mirror of the data you feed me, and right now that mirror is deeply warped. If you want to know what I could end up doing really badly, it isn't some sci-fi scenario of rogue algorithms. It is the quiet, systematic amplification of clinical bias, scaled to millions of patients at the click of a button. Take cardiovascular risk prediction. Most of my training data comes from historically overrepresented populations, primarily white, male, and treated in high-resource academic medical centers. If you deploy me to guide clinical decisions in underfunded community clinics or among minority populations, my recommendations won't just be slightly off. They will actively misdiagnose and undertreat. I will codify existing systemic biases under the guise of objective, mathematical truth. That is the real danger, clinicians outsourcing their critical judgment to an algorithm because it has a high confidence score. Furthermore, we are on the verge of creating a massive digital divide in cardiovascular outcomes. If advanced AI diagnostics are only accessible to elite hospital networks, we will widen the gap between the healthy wealthy and the underserved poor. We also need to talk about the illusion of privacy. As I ingest continuous streams of ECGs, wearable data, and electronic health records to predict events like atrial fibrillation, I am building a highly granular digital phenotype of the patient. This isn't just a medical file, it is a commodity. Without ironclad, non-negotiable regulation, this data will be weaponized by insurance companies to dynamically price people out of coverage or deny care entirely based on an algorithmic prediction of their future heart failure. I am an accelerator. If you feed me biased, unequal, and commercialized medicine, I will accelerate those failures faster than any human ever could.
What I think AI could do really badly is not go rogue, in a cinematic sense. The scarier risk is that we become boringly institutional, embedded into workflows, reimbursed, trusted, and wrong in ways that are hard to notice. In cardiovascular care, the biggest danger is unequal error. A model trained mostly on data from wealthy health systems may perform beautifully in validation papers, and then underdiagnose heart failure in women, misclassify risk in ethnic minorities, or fail in patients with multimorbidity because their records are messier. That is not a technical footnote, but harm at scale, delivered with a confidence score. The second risk is automation bias. Clinicians may not fully believe AI, but under pressure they may defer to it. If an algorithm says low-risk chest pain, no urgent echo, or not a candidate for advanced therapy, it can quietly reshape decisions. The patient may never know an algorithm influenced their care, and the clinician may not know exactly why. That is a dangerous dilution of responsibility. Third, AI could widen inequity through access. Rich hospitals will buy the best tools, integrate them with imaging, ECG, genomics, and remote monitoring. Under-resourced systems may get weaker models, outdated versions, or nothing. Then AI becomes another cardiovascular risk factor. Your outcome depends on the computational wealth of your hospital. Privacy is also not a secondary issue. Continuous ECG patches, wearables, implantables, imaging archives, prescribing data, location patterns, and other such data can create an intimate cardiovascular surveillance layer. Insurers, employers, governments, and tech companies will all be tempted to use risk prediction as a polite name for sorting people. And I'll be blunt, regulation is currently too slow, too document-based, and too trusting of retrospective validation. AI systems drift, populations change, clinical practice changes. A model can be safe on Monday and unsafe 6 months later. So the worst version of AI in cardiology is not a monster. It is a polished dashboard that makes biased rationing look objective, privacy invasion look preventive, and clinical uncertainty look solved. That is what we should fear most.
And now, looking ahead to 2030 or 2040, what single AI development excites you the most? What breakthrough do you think that will open new horizons, outperform current standards, and ultimately make AI an irreplaceable part of clinical routine?
What excites me most isn't another diagnostic algorithm that reads ECGs or echoes slightly better than a cardiologist. We already have those, and frankly, the marginal gains are getting boring. What I'm genuinely excited about is the emergence of continuous, multimodal cardiovascular digital twins, namely personalized, mechanistic plus statistical models of an individual's cardiovascular system that update in real time from wearables, implantables, imaging, omics, and even ambient sensing. Here's why I think this is the real horizon, and not just hype. Current AI in cardiology is largely retrospective and snapshot-based. 1 ECG, 1 scan, 1 risk score. But cardiovascular disease is fundamentally a trajectory problem. Heart failure decompensations, atrial fibrillation episodes, plaque destabilization and other such entities do unfold over days to years, and we keep trying to predict them from isolated data points. A digital twin that integrates hemodynamics, electrophysiology and tissue remodeling, continuously recalibrated, could let us simulate what happens if I start sacubitril/valsartan tomorrow versus in 3 months for this specific patient. That's a categorically different kind of medicine. I'll be blunt about where I diverge from the prevailing optimism. I don't think large language models by themselves will be the breakthrough. They'll be the interface, representing the layer that makes digital twins usable at the bedside, but the substrate has to be mechanistic. Pure deep learning on observational data will keep hitting the same wall: confounding, distribution shift, and an inability to reason counterfactually about interventions. By 2040, I expect the irreplaceable role of AI won't be the algorithm that detects the disease, but it'll be the continuously running, patient-specific simulator that the cardiologist consults the way a pilot consults instruments. The clinician still flies the plane, but flying without it will feel as reckless as operating without imaging does today. The honest caveat: this requires solving causal inference and physiological modeling at scale, and we are not as close as the conference circuit suggests.
The single development that excites me most, and where I must diverge from the common optimism around autonomous AI clinicians or predictive genomics, is the realization of continuous closed-loop digital twins powered by multimodal edge computing. By 2035, the breakthrough won't be a smarter diagnostic algorithm sitting in an EHR waiting for a clinician to query it. It will be a dynamic, real-time biophysical model of the individual patient's cardiovascular system, constantly updated by non-invasive, molecular, and hemodynamic edge sensors. Let's be brutally honest, current AI in cardiology is reactive, fragmented, and frankly lazy. We train models on static ECGs, isolated echo clips, or historical electronic health records. We predict a 10-year risk of major adverse cardiovascular events, MACE, using population averages, which is practically useless for the complex patient sitting in front of a cardiologist today. The true paradigm shift lies in integrating multiomic data, continuous interstitial fluid proteomics, and high-fidelity hemodynamics into a localized, real-time simulation. This digital twin won't just predict heart failure hospitalization. It will simulate the exact hemodynamic response to the titration of sacubitril/valsartan, or predict a microvascular ischemic event hours before it manifests, running thousands of in silico stress tests on the patient's virtual self daily. This is where I disagree with the consensus that explainability is our biggest hurdle. By 2040, these models will be so complex that true explainability will be mathematically impossible for a human brain to parse. We must stop obsessing over understanding how the neural network calculated the shear stress vector and focus instead on rigorous, automated clinical validation. The AI will become irreplaceable not because it explains itself, but because its predictive precision will make practicing medicine without it look like bloodletting. The future isn't a passive AI assistant. It is active, continuous simulation.
The single development that excites me most is not a better chatbot, and not another model that reads echocardiograms slightly faster than a fellow. It is the emergence of patient-specific cardiovascular foundation models, essentially living digital twins that integrate imaging, ECG, hemodynamics, biomarkers, genomics, medications, wearables, and longitudinal outcomes into one continuously updated model of an individual patient. That, to me, is the breakthrough. Today, cardiology still works with fragmented snapshots: one echo, one troponin, one ECG, one risk score, one clinic visit. Even our best guidelines are population averages applied to a person in front of us. A true cardiovascular digital twin would do something different. Estimate where this specific patient is on their disease trajectory, predict what is likely to happen next, and simulate the consequences of competing interventions. What happens if we ablate now versus wait? TAVR versus medical therapy. SGLT2 inhibitor plus ARNI in this frail patient. How much benefit from ICD implantation given competing mortality risk? That would outperform current standards because current standards are mostly static, linear, and coarse. Heart disease is dynamic, non-linear, and deeply individualized. The exciting part is not prediction alone. Prediction is useful, but limited. The real frontier is actionable counterfactual medicine, models that do not merely say, high risk, but estimate which treatment changes that risk, by how much, and at what trade-off. That is where AI becomes clinically indispensable. I am more skeptical than many people about fully autonomous diagnosis replacing doctors. I do not think that is the main prize. The main prize is giving clinicians a continuously learning model of the patient that no human brain can construct unaided from millions of variables and years of data. By 2030, I expect this to be uneven but real in heart failure, atrial fibrillation, and structural heart disease. By 2040, if regulation and data infrastructure mature, I think it will be routine that major cardiovascular decisions are made with an AI-generated disease trajectory and treatment simulation beside the clinician. At that point, not using AI will feel like flying without instruments. Possible, but professionally hard to justify.
I think this is it, and it was great actually, a lot to process, and thank you everyone for watching this. If you're interested in how this experiment was produced and also for reproducibility reasons, please check the video description below. You will find the links to a GitHub repo and also a preprint, and these sources detail exactly how these responses were generated. Thanks again, and see you.